There's a great story today about what's happening with QAnon supporters in anticipation of March 4th. I don't know. Did you talk about this on the show today?
No.
So March 4th is the new day that Trump becomes president to many
right.
QAnon. Right. That and they think he'll be sworn in as president on that day. And they insist Trump will reading from the Business Insider. They insist Trump will return to power, be inaugurated in Washington, D.C. on that day. Coincidentally, Trump International Hotel in D.C. has hiked the prices of suites around that day. Some room rates at the hotel just blocks have almost tripled for March 3rd and 4th, going from between like $400 to $500 and now $1,331 a night for March 3rd and 4th around there. But my favorite sentence in this whole thing, the whole story is of course crazy. They believe that the sovereign citizen movement, all presidents since 1871 are illegitimate. The last legitimate United States president was Ulysses Grant. But the story here has this fantasy has gained traction with the hardcore QAnon adherents. I like the idea that, like, I was like, oh, the hardcore QAnon.
Okay, not the softcore QAnon guys.
Not the soft guys are like, I really QAnon, I could take some of it, some good. Sure, I believe the pedophilia pizza ring, but some of that other stuff is too much.
Yeah. I wonder where the line is. Is it at the brain juice harvesting? Is that
right?
Is that
I don't know.
Crossover, or is it the eating the kids? That's the.
But, we didn't call it this. We laughed. All we did was laugh at what did they call them? The hovel houses.
Hobbit homes.
The Hobbit homes. And that was on Ted Cruz's website. The main part of Ted Cruz's website, that the United Nations was going to move everyone. The United States was part of this global conspiracy, right, to give up U.S. sovereignty and move everyone into Hobbit homes in the city and take all the land. Right, everyone would live in these tiny little Hobbit homes in the city. And Ted Cruz, United States Senator, Ted Cruz, a lunatic, man, and he had this on his website, or he knew better. I don't know. I think he believes it, actually. Right, that's now my sense.
Yeah,
but like. That was true then. It's really no different. That's QAnon. It just found a brand between 2012 when he had that up there, and when QAnon became a thing, whatever the hell QAnon became a thing.
Yeah, and look, so this is one of the reasons why I think sometimes I'm right and everybody else is wrong. In this case, you join me because we covered that on the show, and I'm like, no, you guys, like, people aren't getting it. Some portion of Republicans are nuts, like legitimately nuts. And that was way before Trump. And that was a very offensive thing to say back then. And Cenk, you're wrong. That's crazy. Of course, you just have normal disagreements.
I'm sure
you're
I
a bad
that
person.
Yeah, I'm sure whatever number I picked as the percentage was too low. Peter Navarro, did you cover this on the show?
No.
Before we get to how you talked to us, Peter Navarro, former trade advisor to the president, who was apparently the most powerful trade advisor in the history of American politics, right? So he's on with Maria Bartiromo, right? Who's, again, a case study in what happened. Maria Bartiromo and Rudy Giuliani of how to take credibility that you have, right, and just totally, completely crush it for no good reason. So she asks him, take us through, we can understand better, how was the President Biden was able to get out so many executive orders on day one? I mean, I know he was the president.
Right? And he signed them.
He signed them. They were executive orders, and he took the levers of government. Peter Navarro responds, again, the trade advisor who was out there leading the charge about how the election was stolen, the big lies everybody's calling it. Sure, Maria, in my term, 4 years at the White House, I probably drafted over 50 of these executive orders. What you have to do is make sure you have the statutory authority to do what you're going to do. I'm sure they were very diligent about making sure they had the statutory authority. No question.
Yeah. I'm surprised he's like the only person in the Trump administration that even understands the phrase statutory authority.
That's right. So again, it's one of these guys, Peter Navarro. You watch him; he does not sound like Sidney. What's her last name? Powell. Or he doesn't sound like that, right? He doesn't sound like Congresswoman Bobbert or Congresswoman Taylor Greene, right? Mm-hmm. He sounds like he knows what's going on. right? He sounds like he could be the United States trade advisor to a normal administration. So, and then he goes, and the last checkbox that needs to be done is at the Department of Justice for what's called form and legality. Like I mean, first of all, the Bush administration figured out form and legality, whatever you need. Just find one of the millions of lawyers there and have them write a memo, and you have form and legality, right? That's it. And you have that's. It turned out that was the simplest problem in the history of the world for administrations to solve. Find a guy.
His name is John Yoo. Yeah.
Right. Find a guy and have him say what you want to say, and some guy who wants to be an up and comer will say it. Now,
can I just say, I'm going to interrupt you for a second, Ben. John Yoo was that guy for Dick Cheney, and so he basically went over to the Justice Department. And he's like, "Raise your hand if you like torture." And John Yoo raised his hand. He's like, "Good, you're going to be famous and really rich. Come here, right?"
Yeah,
and
that's right.
This is. And then John Yoo wrote the torture memos. He wrote every memo Dick Cheney needed for things that were obviously illegal, that he gave some sort of BS reason for why it could on Mars be legal, right? And you know what happened? It totally worked. Here's what I mean. Not only did it work to authorize the torture, etc., all they needed was a fig leaf. That I'm not surprised by. And I guess I'm not surprised by this, but I'm sickened by it. John Yoo did get famous. And he then did get jobs at think tanks and different places and probably made a small fortune because he was willing to be shameless and write anything they wanted. So that's why people do it. It's not just because they have bad intent. It's because it works. You will get famous and you will get rich.
Yeah, I don't know whether they went over and asked somebody to raise their hand. It might have been as simple.
No. That's of course that's not actually how it happened.
But I mean, I was struck because I thought about John Yoo when I read about the plan that Trump had to have Jeffrey Rosen. I can't remember whether Jeffrey Rosen is the good guy. Good guy was the guy who didn't ruin everything, or the other Jeffrey, because they're both named Jeffrey. The one who was the acting attorney general after Barr resigned, and then the one who took over. But somebody said to Trump, there's this guy, the Justice Department, who is telling everybody that you have the authority to do whatever the hell you want. Like Pence can do it, or you can do it, whatever. And Trump was like, I want to hear from this guy, and he did. And it made me think, I wonder if that's how Cheney found John Yoo, or did they go hunting for it, or was it brought to his attention that this guy John Yoo he's talking over there. He's basically. He says all you need to do is write a memo, and he's dying to write the memo. I'm curious. It's probably the information is probably available. Anyway, so Peter Navarro says you go to the Justice Department for what's called form and legality. He's answering Maria Bartiromo's question on Fox Business. Then Navarro goes, now here's the news behind the news. I'll try and say it just as he does. Bill Barr, President Trump's attorney general, actually turns out to be Joe Biden's first attorney general, says Navarro, because here was what was happening. We had over 30 executive orders queued up after Election Day, ready to go. But we kept running into all these roadblocks and hurdles. Turns out that Bill Barr's Office of Legal Counsel was fast-tracking all of these Biden executive orders. And basically, it was a deep state coup.
Yeah.
That was it. And then her follow-up question, though, was super interesting. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
he ran out of gas too.
Challenged to prove it because she's a journalist.
Right. You find it. You should play it tomorrow on the show because he's like Bill Barr was fast tracking all these Biden executive orders, and he ran out of whatever his dumb theory was, and then he went to, and basically it was just a deep state coup. Like it just ended like that. Like he's building, and so apparently the Biden administration was in and reached Barr, and that's how Biden was able to get all these executive orders. And that's Peter Navarro, and he sounds normal.
Yeah,
he isn't.
Yeah. Look, Your Honor, I think we made a prima facie case here, and we're looking for summary judgment, and that's why I wanted to conclude by saying that the government built the sky so we couldn't see God. What? Wait, it sounded pretty good until then.
It was fine. It just seemed to fall apart in the last 9 seconds.
Yeah. So, look, Ron Johnson was on TV on Sunday. So, and said it might have been that it was Pelosi who planned the riot at the Capitol to cover up her crimes.
Ron Johnson beat Russ Feingold.
I know.
I mean, Russ Feingold. Just as full of decency, full of legitimate concern about working Americans. And somehow this, I don't know, is Ron Johnson a billionaire? He's not a billionaire. He's 100
He's
million.
very wealthy.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy who comes out of nowhere and then he says stuff like this. I mean, and I don't know what to do about that. Like, that's what we're living in. That's propaganda. Like, that's this world of giant misinformation from people in authority who just say stuff, and it works, right? Works a little, works enough to keep polarization, works enough to keep whatever that persuadable number is of people that can be reached, that you and I could reach if we went traveling around the country. And that others could, certainly, where they would be like, oh, okay, all right, I got it. So you guys aren't communists, it turns out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. But how do you talk to QAnon or even lower gradation MAGA people? I don't mean lower gradation as in worse. I just mean presumably not quite as crazy. So just like a normal person, don't weirdly lie to them or patronize them, right? And I think that's the number one problem the media has when they try to talk to them, or politicians, right? They're like, okay, now we're going to talk about, brain juice harvest. They won't even say it. They're so embarrassed to say it, right? They're like walking on eggshells and stuff. No, just go up and say, hey, listen, I think you're wrong. And I think sometimes you're a dick. And sometimes you think I'm a dick, right? Or a lot of times. And that's okay. But let's have an honest conversation. No bullshit.
I think that in general, as you think about the politicians, first of all, it takes skill to do this, real skill. And it's hard to find. And we don't have 535 skilled people in Congress doing it, right? Because the process of running does not breed that kind of person, because the process of running requires so much money. And to get that money, you got to go to people who aren't interested in that message. Now, I'll sound exactly like you, but that is unquestionably true, right?
Yeah.
And so, but like the things that would work is that it's funny. It's like what you need to do in part is be much more negative. Like, stop appealing to our best angels and talk about the things that do unite us, which is how pissed we are.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. How much
100%.
contempt we, right. Like, I know, look, man, I hate my job too. And I've been screwed too. And I don't have enough money either. Right. And I can't buy what I want either. And I'm worried about my kids having a lousier time, and I want to send them to private school, and I can't also. Right. And I get it. You work all the time, and you kind of, I'm as angry at my spouse as you are at yours. I mean, all the way from things that government affects until the actual just circumstances of life, because that is unquestionably what we share, right? There's no conservatives aren't more likely to, or less likely, and liberals aren't more or less likely to want to yell at the person that they spend their life with. Will you shut up? Right? I mean, that is universally shared by men and women and conservatives and liberals and black and white, and gay and straight. And I imagine that, but that's not a message you hear politicians reach out with ever.
Yeah, no, Ben, you nailed it, because, and that goes also substantively to the why people in media and politics can't talk to them, but we could, because it's. Old school reporters used to be able to do exactly what you're saying. Hey, brother, I got this issue, you got that issue. Let's talk about it, guy to guy, or you fill in the blank for whatever categories, right? But now, like, reporters don't say, they can, but they just don't know it. I think they can't say, yeah, you're getting screwed, right? I mean, the politicians are screwing you. I can say that because it's true, right? And I can show them how they're screwing you. But no one on cable news would say that. No one. So then you can't have a real conversation with them, and you can't ever break through to them, because you are lying to them, and they are right that you're lying.
It goes back to, I know we got to go, but we need a robust, strong print media that is bigger than the New York Times and the Washington Post, and the LA Times. We need because those guys, they didn't make that much money. Right? They were like everybody else.
All right. Thanks for watching this free clip of Old School. Don't forget to become a TYT member today for the rest of the show and for more exclusive content throughout the network. Join now at tyt.com/join.
We found television's best kept secret. A brother got